Iranian embassy in Canada was a center for Iranian officials to export their, use as a bridge to export their culture, Islamic culture, and the revolutionary cultures to Canadian society.
They never engage in a way. They sign agreements in ink, and they fight it in blood.
The Islamic Republic would use this as evidence of renewed international legitimacy.
Islamic Republic had too much access to information and Canadian communities within Canada.
An embassy is not a courtesy desk.
Hi there. Reopening the Canadian embassy in Tehran. Really? Of all the considerations Canada could be having about the Islamic Republic in 2026, this is the one? So to recap, a couple of weeks ago, Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada should move toward reopening embassies in countries such as the Islamic Republic of Iran, arguing that maintaining a diplomatic presence does not amount to endorsing the government in power. Well, that may sound pragmatic in a foreign policy seminar, but to many Iranian Canadians, it sounded nothing short of astonishing. Remember, Canada closed its embassy in Tehran in 2012 and expelled Islamic regime diplomats from Ottawa because the Islamic Republic was considered a threat to international peace, a danger to the Iranian people, and a regime that repeatedly disregarded the safety of foreign diplomats. That was 2012. 14 years later, what exactly has improved? Well, since that embassy closed, the Islamic Republic has shot Flight PS-752 out of the sky, killing 176 innocent people, including Canadian citizens and residents, as you know. It has executed protesters, imprisoned dissidents, murdered children after the killing of Mahsa Amini, massacred tens of thousands earlier this year, and of course taken foreign nationals hostage and continued threatening journalists and activists and critics beyond Iran's borders, including here in Canada. And the proposed response is to restore an embassy, reopening the Canadian embassy in Tehran. Really? Yes, embassies can provide consular assistance. Yes, governments need channels through which to communicate, especially with their adversaries. But there is a quid pro quo. Diplomacy isn't only about what one side receives, it's also about what the other side is handed. An embassy offers access and recognition and the appearance of normal relations. For a regime desperate to prove that the world is moving on, a Canadian flag flying in Tehran would not be treated as an administrative convenience. It would be displayed as political vindication. It would tell the families of Flight PS-752 that accountability can apparently be postponed in the name of engagement. It would tell threatened Iranian Canadians that their government is prepared to normalize relations with the very state responsible for those threats. And it would tell Tehran that enough time has passed for Canada to lower the cost of its conduct, even though that conduct has not fundamentally changed. Diplomacy has its place, but timing carries meaning, and an embassy is never just an office. You might say an embassy is a message. Canada should be standing with the people of Iran and protecting Canadians from the Islamic Republic, not offering the regime a fresh symbol of legitimacy. Remember, the IRGC is actually on the terrorist list here in Canada, and that's what we got. And now, reopening the Canadian embassy in Tehran. Maybe not. It's July 13, 2026. This is Roqe. Hi there, how are you? Welcome to episode 452 of Roqe Iran Rises. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Salam Dustan Aziz, Durud Basham. I hope you are doing okay wherever you are tuning in from around the world. This is the 48th episode in our Iran Rises series. This one entitled, Should Canada Return to Tehran? So, as I was saying there in the opening essay, Prime Minister Mark Carney has reopened a debate that many thought had been settled more than a decade ago. Is a Canadian embassy in Tehran simply a practical tool of diplomacy, or would it hand the Islamic Republic exactly the legitimacy it has spent years trying to regain? Political thinkers Avideh Motmaen-Far and Ardeshir Zarezadeh join me for a conversation about what Canada's Iran policy should look like and why, for many Iranian Canadians, this isn't just about an embassy. It's about the message that reopening one would send. That's coming up. Before we get there, let me tell you about Roqe Live 6. It is only 5 days away. Tickets are on sale, and they are going fast. Most of the good seats on the floor are gone. You want to get to the tickets right away for Roqe Live 6. We're thrilled to announce that Roqe Live returns on Saturday, July 18th. That's this coming Saturday at the Richmond Hill Centre for the Performing Arts. It's a beautiful theater in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto. This edition includes a lineup with legendary singer and Roqe Media Icon Award recipient, this time Shahram Shapare, psychologist and social media star Tina Parsa. Tina's coming, she's actually been in Iran. She's coming now from London. This is her first time in Canada ever. And we're very excited to have her here, a very popular presence online. Tina Parsa, who will bring thoughts about what she witnessed, who she counseled, and what she's experienced in Iran over the last 6 months in particular. This is her first time talking about that in front of an audience. She'll do it here in Toronto. Shali Zomarodi, the beloved broadcaster, Fox News in San Diego. She's going to be back here for Roqe Live 6. Very happy to have Shali back here. G-Doll, the rapper who is involved, I don't know if I'm allowed to announce this. I think I can. He's working on something new. That's a television series. Beyond his awesome pieces that he puts out musically, G-Doll will be performing and joining me for an interview on stage at Roqe Live 6. Matok Arayi, the karate champion, the young karate champion and activist. Dariush Azar, the singer-songwriter coming in from Montreal. Many of you would know him from the band Paulette. Ghazal Piano is back on stage with us. Pega Ganji, I'll be there hosting. We've got some surprises for you as well. You want to come see them. So we'd love to see you there. Tickets are available now. How do you get tickets? Okay. The Roqe Media Instagram page. You go to the Instagram page, there in the bio, you click the link, it takes you straight there. Somebody had written to me saying they hear that the Roqe Live 6 is sold out. It is not sold out. There are some tickets available. Link to the bio from the Roqe Media Instagram page. You can also do it from my Instagram page at Jian Ghomeshi. And we'll see you this Saturday for Roqe Live 6. All right. Is an embassy more than just a building? Let's get to our panel. Let me tell you about Avoca Chocolates. This episode of Roqe is brought to you with the support of Avoca Chocolates, and they have a brand new location in Toronto. So we're thrilled that this small non-Iranian company in Toronto has stepped up to support us and Iranians in this time. Noni Fenby and her staff at Avoca have been making handmade artisanal chocolate in Toronto for over 30 years. Family owned and operated, they have dedicated themselves to the art of making delicious treats, including truffles and ice cream and gelato, made without compromise. Avoca has focused on high quality ingredients with fair trade chocolate, all made fresh daily in one of their 2 locations in East Toronto. So they have just opened a brand new spot. It's at 689 Broadview Avenue in Riverdale, Broadview Danforth, if you know Toronto. If you are in Toronto, go visit one of their great chocolate shops and thank them for their support and taste these delicious handmade chocolates. If you can't go in person, that's okay. You can get their chocolates and products online at avocachocolates.com. avocachocolates.com. You won't regret it. Thank you again, Avoca. All right, let's get to our panel. She is an osteopathic practitioner, a journalist, a political commentator, and a longtime advocate for human rights and democratic values within the Iranian Canadian community. Born with deep roots in Iranian culture and shaped by the experience of the Islamic Revolution, she has become a vocal critic of the Islamic Republic, writing extensively on Iran and Middle Eastern affairs for a range of international publications and serving as the president of the Council of Iranian Canadians. She's just published an article about this embassy issue. Avideh Motmaen-Far joins us from Oakville, Ontario. And Ardeshir Zarezadeh is a lawyer and activist who has recently spent time on Parliament Hill here in Canada, meeting with politicians and lobbying for the free Iran cause. He is a former student leader in Iran and a former political prisoner in Iran who spent 2 years in solitary confinement for his fight for freedom and human rights. He's the director of the International Center for Human Rights in Iran, and he's running for city councillor in the riding of Willowdale in Toronto at present. He joins us from Toronto. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to have you both back on the program. So let's begin with a basic question. It seems like deja vu all over again. Why are we suddenly having this conversation again? What has changed in Ottawa that has brought the possibility of Canada reopening its embassy in Tehran back onto the table? Why is Mark Carney talking about this, Avideh?
Well, I think that the foolhardy deal and ceasefire that the President Trump agreed to with the Iranian regime brought up the idea that that promise can be, used in Canada, and the engagement with Tehran doesn't cost anything, and we can eventually reopen the embassy and have diplomatic and commercial activity back up. But I believe that 47 years of history with the Iranian regime says otherwise, and this is not a very good idea to go on that direction for Canada.
Ardeshir, your thoughts on why this is cropping up all of a sudden again?
Well, I guess the Liberals' forever policy is engaging in diplomatic relations with other countries. With Iran, obviously, it's different. Canada cut the relationships with Iran, with the Islamic Republic a number of times. They had a back and forth situation, so it's not easy to reestablish the relationship. But that is what I believe they are considering, trying to see what the public feedback is, what the other politicians think about it, how civil society will react to such view. And at this point, I guess Canada got a strong response from the community that the majority is not in favor of reestablishing the diplomatic relationship. I believe even though they say they are not planning to do that, that is under consideration.
You feel so? You think this was a bit of a floater? Mark Carney says this, trying to gauge what the reaction is going to be.
And yeah, in my view, they're just checking the reactions, trying to see what the civil society, communities, politicians will respond to the consideration. But as I mentioned, that's a long time policy. Liberals always want to have diplomatic relations almost with all the governments and countries around the world, even though they care about the human rights violation, but this is still a policy.
Okay, I mean, in terms of this coming up again, I keep saying that we went through this back in 2012. I remember it quite well. Canada closed its embassy in Tehran. Remind us, Ardeshir, what the circumstances were back then, and perhaps how relevant those reasons are today.
Well, there was a reason for closing down the embassy, and for a number of reasons. The government of Canada decided to close down the embassy for a number of reasons, not only for one reason. The Islamic Republic of Iran supported the Assad regime in Syria. They failed to follow the UN resolutions in terms of the nuclear program. They started attacking Israel, and the human rights violations massively going on, systematic human rights violation, I would say. They supported the designated terrorist organizations in the region. And most importantly, Canada had concerns over the concerns over the safety of the Canadian diplomats in Iran. There were news that the Islamic Republic's agents are planning to attack the Canadian embassy in Tehran. And the other issues like the case of Zahra Kazemi still remained unresolved, and Iranian officials were not cooperative. So Canada decided to close down the embassy for those reasons, and they are still, in my view, remained unresolved.
Avideh, what do you remember about that time in 2012 and the initial closing of the embassy by Canada?
Well, in 2012, one of the biggest problem was that Canada and Iran didn't have a diplomatic relationship already for a long time. And each time Canada tried to reach out to Iran and tried to go toward a full embassy from a mission only toward a full embassy, Iran didn't collaborate. When we had a mission, they actually arrested and tortured and killed Zahra Kazemi in Iran, and they lied about it. They created a sham kind of inquiry to her death, and they were never took responsibility. So there was already no exchange of ambassadors, and every time they tried to present a candidate of ambassador to Canada, they were members of IRGC who took American hostage. So Canada never accepted their ambassadors. So the relationship was already very problematic, and there were also all the causes that Ardeshir mentioned. So everything together, there was absolutely no reason why Canada should, have the embassy open, knowing that their so-called diplomats are not really diplomats, and they are members of IRGC. So that's why, and under the pressure of many activists in Canada, who, we asked the Canadian government to close the embassy because they were only spying on Iranian diaspora.
But that said, what I remember about 2012 is that it was quite controversial. It seemed like a very bold move for it was the Harper government, and that the Iranian Canadian community was not unified on this at all. There was a lot of debate. There was a lot of disagreement. There was a lot of people saying, no, leave the embassy open. This is an outrage. What Ardeshir just described as, a more unified response to this current floating of the idea from the Iranian Canadian community now is why I found this quite shocking, to be honest. When I saw Prime Minister Carney saying this, I was thinking, really, read the room, bro. What, this is, a lot of the Iranian Canadians have been your supporters in terms of the liberal government. It's kind of hard to believe that they would think that this wouldn't meet with a lot of opposition. Did it shock you, Avideh?
Absolutely. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that Prime Minister Carney mused about it on June 25th to have an official embassy in Tehran, that not having that embassy in Iran is going to put Canada at a disadvantage. And he said that engagement is not endorsement, and having an embassy, having consular services in Canada does not mean that we endorse the policies of that country. But the next day, his own foreign ministry contradicted him, and he retreated to say, "Oh, I'm just making a point." And actually in 2016, 2017, when Canada wanted to reopen the idea of reopening the diplomatic relations, They walked away as Professor Sayed Imami was suspiciously died in prison in Iran, and they walked away from those talks at that time. So
it's worth remembering that when the embassy was originally closed in 2012, that's pre Alban, that's pre-Flight 752, that's pre-Massa Amini, that's certainly pre-40,000 being killed earlier this year in the streets just for protesting. So that leads to some of this shock. That said, Ardeshir, I mean, the supporters of reopening do make this argument about engagement is not endorsement, that this is, that an embassy is a tool for consular services, etc., to which you say what?
Yeah, well, look, I had a meeting with the uh, immigration minister, Jason Kenney, during the Harper time, right after they closed down the embassy. And Minister Kenney said, look, we don't oppose to consular affairs relationship type thing because we believe that people need to get their consular things done. They want to renew their passports, this and that. So, excuse me. So we are okay to have a uh, Pakistani embassy or another embassy to represent Iran in Canada. The same way we do in Iran, we choose Italy, Italy as our protecting power. So Iran can do the same. But it was Iran, Islamic Republic that opposed to that decision. They didn't want to have a representation in another embassy, the same they do in Washington, D.C., in Pakistani embassy. They didn't want the same to happen in Canada. But at this point, it's not about the diplomatic relationship. It's about the specific issues between Canada and Iran. We're talking about a number of issues that caused the closing down the embassy. So are those issues still outstanding, remain unresolved, or resolved? So when we are looking at the issues, as I mentioned before, like Islamic Republic supporting the terrorist groups, uh, attacking Israel, causing problems in Middle East and around the world. And it's still one of the top transnational actors in Canada, still trying
I
to
guess
operate.
Ardeshir, one of the arguments that against that would be, or somebody might say this is a little difficult for me. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but they would say, well, um, circumstances have changed. The diaspora has grown massively, particularly in Canada. In the intervening years, a lot of Iranians have come to Canada, as you would know, and there's a practical and they might say a humanitarian argument that many Iranian Canadians have, they're here in the hundreds of thousands, and they have family in Iran, and Canadians may need passports or visas or emergency assistance, and with an embassy, ordinary people end up paying the price without an embassy. What do we say to that?
Well, well, look, I agree with you. Population is massively changed. They're almost up to 900 or maybe up to 1 million Iranians live in Canada. Uh, but most of them joined rallies against the Islamic Republic in Canada. Just on February 14 of this year, based on the Toronto Police report, over 350,000 and our estimation over 450,000 Iranian Canadians and allied joined that rally. So that means most of the Iranian Canadians are against the policies of Islamic Republic. And they
That's for
don't
sure, but
believe.
they carve this out. I personally know people who are on that protest. I've been talking to people all week about this, preparing for this panel. I know people who are on that protest who they might not say it publicly, but they actually don't mind the embassy reopening. They say, I get a visa for my mom. I need this stuff. So we can't necessarily suggest that because they were on the rallies, all Iranian Canadians are opposed to an embassy in Tehran.
Look, the foreign minister Anita Anand, on June 26th of this year, announced that they are not planning to reopen the Islamic Republic's embassy in Canada. If they do that, it's going to create a lot of issues. Iranian Canadians are not happy with that. There may be consequences. And this also raises legitimate security concerns for not only Iranian Canadians, for many people that concern over this issue. And I don't think that Canadian government, even though there are some people within the party and the government advocate for that.
Sorry,
I don't
how does opening the embassy create security concerns?
Well, Islamic Republic is one of the top transnational repression actors in Canada. On top of that, based on the CSIS, the security agency's report, IRGC has presence in Canada, and they are operating in Canadian soil. So,
and they're still coming in, despite the fact that the IRGC is now on the terrorist list. So that's what I'm saying. What difference does it make whether there's an embassy open or not?
Well, that's a conflict. So what I'm saying is, if they open the embassy in Canada, the embassy will be official representative of those agencies in Canada. It will be easier for IRGC and other actors they freely operate in Canada. So that's what creates this legitimate security concerns. That's one example. So another thing is, as I mentioned before, the Islamic Republic's support for proxies and terrorist organizations is still going on. That's one of the reasons that the Canadian government decided to shut down the embassy. In that time, that particular time that Canada made this decision, if other countries would join Canada, that was our demand. We urged the world to shut down Iranian embassies around the world. If they would do that, we wouldn't see this much problems in Iran, in Middle East, around the world. And also, there was no crime against humanity in Iran. They killed over 50,000 people. If they would shut down the Iranian embassy, maybe we could get a better result that time. It was only Canadian government that did that. But the thing is, the concerns still remain the same. Until it's not resolved, I don't think it's a good idea to reopen the embassy.
Okay, Avideh, I mentioned in the introduction
if I can jump in, one of the biggest issues of having an embassy is that Prime Minister Carney said that having an embassy is not a problem, is not endorsing the policies of that country, but having an embassy. This is precisely what is wrong with that statement, is that an embassy is not a courtesy desk. It's an institution where the employees of that embassies are enjoying diplomatic immunities. So
it's also as you say. I mean, I mentioned in the introduction you've just written this article that you published last week that I think is a very strong one. One of the central arguments in your article is that reopening an embassy is not a neutral act. You say, and that the Islamic Republic would use this as evidence of renewed international legitimacy. How does that happen? I mean, how does the regime turn diplomatic engagement into political propaganda?
Well, they use it. Look what they just did for as the funeral that they mounted for 6 days for their so-called supreme leader. That wasn't a mourning event for Ali Khamenei. In my opinion, that was to set the stage for their new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, that nobody has seen. And that was to ask, they wanted the delegation of other countries to come to Iran and show support, just to translate that into legitimacy for them and saying, we killed 40,000 people of our own people, but nobody cares, and we can just continue to do so and continue to deal, to have diplomatic and commercial relationship with other countries. They always translate the willingness of the Western countries to engage with them into legitimacy for themselves. And that is the danger. That is, in my opinion, the biggest problem that we can have reopening an embassy with Iran now.
Avideh, let me ask you both. I mean, there is an argument that by having an embassy or some sort of institution inside, an official institution in a place like Tehran, you have access to information, relationships, networks that you can leverage in a way that you cannot otherwise. So particularly some of the outstanding issues, Flight 752, some of the issues that, the official issues that Canada would have with Iran, this can foster a better understanding of what the Islamic Republic regime is thinking and doing by having a place on the ground there. Why is that not a legitimate argument, Avideh?
Because the Islamic Republic is not a normal country. I have the impression that all the Western countries, they look at Iran through their own lens of a democratic, they have this view of the world that is democratic, and they think that engagement goes both ways. But with Iran, we have never had a normal relationship, and Iran, the Islamic Republic is not a normal country. They lie, they deceit, they never engage in a way. They sign agreements in ink, and they fight it in blood, and the blood of their own people, by the way. So I don't believe that Western countries understand what they are dealing with when they speak about Iran, and they don't listen to us enough. That's the reason why I'm writing, because I want things to be clear for them, that what they are engaging with is, last time that we had full diplomatic relations with the Islamic Republic was in 1979, and Ken Taylor had to disguise his employees and slip them out of the country because they had to run for their lives. So it is a nonsense to do anything in that regard with the Iranian regime, because nothing has changed. If anything, the Iranian regime has become so bold and bolder every year. If you look at the history of 47 years, they started by some assassinations, and then they got so bold that they are not even responding. There is no accountability.
Okay, I would share the same argument to you. I mean, the argument says, look, you don't need diplomatic relations that you can leverage with governments that or nations that you're already friendly with. The whole point is you need to leverage those diplomatic relations with enemy states or with countries that you have issues with. So you have an embassy there. It's a way of sourcing information, penetrating into the country, finding out what the regime is thinking, all of that. To which you say what?
Well, let me tell you something. There is no obligation for any country to have diplomatic relations with another country. There is international law, but it's not obligating governments to establish diplomatic relations. International law mostly defines the relationship and protects the property of the foreign state in another country. And in this context, with the history of the Iran and Canada's relationship, I guess what is, in my view, best to do, especially in referring to your previous question, is to Canada to push for intersections, the same as the intersection in Washington, D.C., that Iranians can get consular support and help. The same can happen in Canada. The Islamic Republic can have an interest section in Canada, in Ottawa, anywhere. And Canada had the same in Iran. If we can have interest section in any uh, embassy, I guess that would resolve the issue that Mark Carney addressed in his speech um, a few weeks ago. And in that case, we have the support for people, ordinary people. And at the same time, Canada maintains its position on sanctions, listing IRGC, human rights issues, the case of PS752 flight, and other issues. I guess this is the best approach for Canada than saying, oh, we're considering the reestablishing the relationship with Iran. This is what the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tried to do. But after he launched meetings to negotiate the reestablishment, it failed. He realized that he can't do that. Islamic Republic is not cooperative. They're going to come back to Ottawa and create problems. So he decided not to continue. The new administration uh, under Mark Carney, I guess, has the same mentality, not to pursue reopening the embassy, but there are certain people in the administration that are opposed to that decision, that mentality, and they want to reopen the embassy.
Okay.
But I don't think in short term there will be any agreement.
I appreciate the points you've made about what you feel the Canada policy should be. Can I just hear you out on the question I asked though, because I'm curious to hear your view on this argument that keeping an embassy open would give Canada access to information, to intelligence inside Iran, would have somebody on the ground there that can be leveraged. This is something that we hear often in these kind of debates, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on why that's not a legitimate argument.
Well, at the same time, this is going to give Islamic Republic access to Canada and information here. One of the most important reasons that Canada decided, one of the reasons that Canada decided to uh, uh, cut the relationship was because Islamic Republic had too much access to information and Canadian communities within Canada, and it was dangerous under the consideration of Harper government's officials. So they don't want to do the same. They're going to give access to Islamic Republic, and Islamic Republic already recognized the security concerns in Canada. So I don't think that's a good idea. The access to intelligence in Iran, I don't think is a problem for Canada. The Israeli intelligence service already has way too much access to information and other agencies as well. And as you know, agencies always work together. So it wouldn't be hard for Canada to have access information if and intelligence if Canadian government and I mean intelligence service and other departments decide to cooperate with them.
That's a really good point to make, that about that there's a quid pro quo. We open the embassy there. It also means it's reciprocal. It means Canadian information gets shared as well. Avideh, I mean, Canada still has, you've mentioned it, Ardeshir has mentioned, major unresolved issues with the Islamic Republic, let alone the way Iranian Canadians feel about the regime, etc. Flight PS752, the designation of the IRGC as a terrorist entity, allegations of intimidation, transnational repression against Iranian Canadians. Should diplomatic normalization be impossible until those issues are addressed? In other words, where is the bar here?
Absolutely. In my opinion, there is absolutely no reason for Canada to even consider re-establishing relationship with a country that is killing its own people. Canada used to stand for human rights. We were pioneers in standing for human rights everywhere in the world. Why, when it comes to Iran, all of a sudden everybody is blinking? I believe that no relations, no legitimacy, no handshake should be done with the Iranian regime as long as the Iranian regime is operating in Iran. And I believe that the new relations must be, made with a legitimate government that will be chosen by the Iranian people. And before that time, we don't need a mission to protect Canadians in Iran. We just need to remember what this regime has already done to them.
Before I let you both go, if this, it sounds like you both are suggesting you don't think this policy will actually actualize in terms of this being something that was floated out there, the reaction being what it is. Although the Canadian government has surprised us in a number of ways, so who knows? Let's imagine the Canadian government does announce tomorrow that it's reopening the embassy in Tehran, and beyond the symbolism. What do you most worry about when that embassy opens the next day? What do you most worry about happening, Ardeshir?
Well, look, I recognize the importance of consular affairs, to be honest, and I believe that that is very important for ordinary people, for everyone. We need to have consular services for everyone, and that consular services also will have a positive impact on the relationship between two nations. But on the other side, this practical consular consideration should not outweigh Canada's responsibility to protect national security, and to defend human rights. And Canada is a country that always talks about international justice and obligations. So another point is upholding international justice. So this is going to be against all those values, I believe. And in my view, mainly security is a big issue and big barrier that also the politicians in Canada consider that as a legitimate issue. And the Islamic Republic of Iran has never be cooperative with Canada and any other country in the world. So,
Sorry, just
in my
just one
view,
more time. In practical terms, what does it mean that the embassy opens tomorrow? How does that security issue play out? I'm asking honestly. I don't know.
no,
I
I was telling you that it is a legitimate security issue. Opening the embassy will give the Islamic Republic the power to operate on Canadian soil. They will bring their agents to Canada. Agents are already operating in Canada, so you will see more money coming to country supporting those rallies, and the demonstrations against Canadian value, against Western values, and against democratic values. We'll see more movement mobilized against Canada and the West. There will be more agents on Canadian soil. The regime's intention was to export the revolution and to Canada. I had a meeting with the minister after the shutting down the embassy. They said Canadian embassy, Iranian embassy in Canada was a center for Iranian officials to export their use as a bridge to export their culture, Islamic culture, and the revolutionary cultures to Canadian society. And they were almost successful in building organization in universities, civil societies, in communities, and we didn't want that. We had to stop it. So Islamic Republic has never showed any uh, positive sign that it's not their agenda. And anytime we had a demonstration in Canada supporting the Islamic regime, we had the news in Iranian media that there is a connection between those rallies, those movements with uh, Iranian regime's government. So the same is going to come back to Canada, and it's also another sign of a security issue for Canadian government.
I may add something to that, Ardeshir, is also that it is true that already the Iranian regime is operating in Canada and their agents are here, but with the embassy, those agents will enjoy diplomatic immunity. So they will be excluded from any arrest, any questioning, any prosecution on Canadian soil. So it gives them open hands to do whatever they would like to do in this country. Like it's going to facilitate the operations of the Islamic Republic. That's the only thing that they want, because they always refused to open a consular service for to help Iranian diaspora, because that's never been their problem, to help Iranian people. All they wanted was to reopen an embassy because they can enjoy immunity from prosecution on Canadian soil. That's my 2 cents.
It's quite terrifying. And when you put it that way, it is quite terrifying that.
And let me
go ahead.
Final
final word. Yes.
Yeah. Well, look, IRGC listed as a terrorist entity. IRGC is the one that protecting Islamic regime and Islamic regime's values. IRGC will come back to Canada, and Canada doesn't accept that because IRGC is listed as a terrorist organization in Canada. This is conflict. Reopening the embassy is conflict. As I mentioned, issues remain unresolved. So Canada's position will be weakened, and the government will be under question. And at the same time, look, thousands of Iranians, I heard this from many Iranian Canadians, I wish we had embassy here so we could go and have demonstration, So this is also going to be another security problem in Canada if they reopen the embassy. Now people will go there and start rallying, demonstrations, protests, this and that. So I mean, I don't think with all the consideration on the table, Canada will be able to reopen the embassy sometime soon.
I always appreciate both of you coming on this program. Thank you for making the time today. I know you're both busy. Merci for this. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Khodafis. Thank you again to Ardeshir and Avideh for that engaging conversation. We tried to find someone from the Iranian Canadian community who would come in and speak in favor of the embassy reopening in Tehran, the Canadian embassy. We found a couple of people who have made that argument online, but were not willing to come and do it on this show. So I did my best to play devil's advocate there. I couldn't really maintain a postulate of objectivity on this one because I'd done the opening essay giving you my thoughts that I do not think this is a good idea. I'm with the majority, I suspect, of Iranian Canadians. But if you disagree, and in fact, if you fervently believe, if you're an Iranian Canadian or if you're an Iranian anywhere in the world other than a regime asset who fervently believes that we should have a Canadian embassy reopened in Tehran, let us know. Maybe we can put you on the show to get that opinion. You can email us at info@roqemedia.com, info@roqemedia.com, or DM us on any of our social platforms. A reminder again that this Saturday, July 18th, Roqe Live 6, Shahram Shapare, Tina Parsa, Shali Zomarodi, Mata Ghayri, Dariush Azar, G-Doll, Ghazal Piano, more. Peggy Ganji, myself, the whole Roqe team. We'll see you at the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts this Saturday. Tickets are on sale now. Go to our bio go to our Instagram page, and in the bio there, click on that. It'll take you the link to the tickets. This is full time for this edition of Roqe. Thank you. Thank you to the core team who put this show together twice a week. Roham Meher, Savvy Roham as we know him, Super Paris Sanjirani, and the photo and video queen Tina Farahi. Special thanks to the extended Roqe family who are working hard on Roqe Live 6 coming up. Smart Pega, Methodical Kaveh, Talented Anihita, Charming Kimia, and the Rising Keon. Thank you guys for all your hard work. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Look, if you listen to Roqe or you watch Roqe and you're not a subscriber already, it is free. That's how cheap it is. It's free. You just press the button and subscribe. You'll get notified of our future episodes. You can also send us a little thanks by pressing super thanks on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, remember this. Mizun Bashi.